Hello, rock and roll community. It's Barb. It's Tuesday, which means it is our Tuesday Training Tools Day. And happy April. Here we are. We had such a wonderful long month of March studying you, the prepared adult, doing some deep reflections about your professional growth and personal growth and everything that goes into that. And now we're going to transition into our April theme, which is presentation of the materials, our lesson presentations, how we're connecting our learners to the learning environment, and spending the month just talking about some tips and some reminders of how we can make this extremely meaningful, and give you some more tools and resources to help you with this. After all, you are the link between the child and the environment. So to have extra tools or different tips to use with different children in different classrooms is extremely helpful, because you're responsible for making that connection so the children can learn and be with the materials and the lessons in the learning environment. So let's get started. As always, I like to have a visual in case you're a visual person like me. And let's see, what am I doing here? Where am I? View. Wow, took me a while. I don't know why that took me so long. Sorry. Here we are, Tuesday Training Tools in April. So this month we are going to study and review the preparation of presentation of materials. What do I need to prep before I even get to the point of bringing that new material or learning material into the environment? What do I need to prep for myself and everything around it? Then we're going to, the following week, we'll talk about material setup and all the little details that go into it and why we have those details and why we want to be paying attention to those. Then the following, we're going to really talk about how do we engage that learner? How do we, that child that just does not seem interested or doesn't want to deal with any, doesn't feel like he or she wants to be a part of anything in the environment. How do we engage them? What are some things we can do to help them connect to the materials? And then lastly, we're going to end the month by saying, let's get creative. I mean, with our philosophy, the sky's the limit. And that's what I love about this philosophy, because we can take, really any learning opportunity and put it into our framework. And we get to be creative. We don't have set curriculums for this reason. And you get to really base it off of the children's needs and make it super personalized, but it should also be very fun. So we'll end the month with that. So I'm really looking forward to the whole month, and let's get started on preparation. I kind of like that this is the first week of what we're studying, because we just came off of preparation for the adults. So it's so fitting, right? Because we know now after the whole month of March that if we're not taking care of ourselves first, if we aren't prepping ourselves first, we can't serve the children or, really anything, right? So it's the same applies to when we're talking about our materials. If our materials are not prepped, if I'm not thinking about this lesson ahead of time and prepping everything, then it's not going to be, it won't be able to fulfill the need that it carries to help, the children learn and have be successful in our classrooms or home environments. Okay. So the first, what we want to ask is, answer these two really simple questions when you're first thinking about a material and you're prepping for, making a lesson. First, what skills and knowledge do I want the children to gain from this learning experience? Like, what's the point? Why do I want to put this out? What learning objective is it connected to? So you want to pull out your learning objective sheet to look it over and say, which one, where does this fall under? I want to make sure everything has a purpose before we're bringing a new learning material into our learning environments, okay? And then the second question is, what activity, what's the actual material and lesson going to look like to help accomplish these goals? I want to teach counting 1 to 10. Those are the skills and the knowledge I want the child to gain from this. And I'm going to do it by having this, I'm going to cut out a frog lily pads, and they're going to, have little frogs that match to the numeral, to the quantity, to the numeral. and that's my lesson. So you kind of, that's just an example, but that's, you want to kind of just start with asking those two questions to get you like in, okay, this is what we're focusing on for the lesson. So, and then I want you, when you're thinking about your lesson, I want you to be thinking about these forecasting questions. What are, okay, I have what the purpose of the lesson is going to be. I have the materials that are going to carry out what that learning objective is. And now, I'm going to go through my material making checklist, and I want to now bring it into my classroom. And I think it's really important to pause at this moment and to think about some forecasting question, like maybe some common issues that may come up when you think about this lesson, or how the children in your environment work. And this is really important because this is where our observation is so key, right? Because if you have a group, if you're a toddler teacher, or you have toddlers in your nanny pod, and they are just kind of going through this dumping phase, you're probably going to think twice about some lessons that you put out or some activities you do. You're not going to give them, like a bucket of water or like, a whole thing of Legos. That sounds so satisfying when they dump that basket and they go absolutely everywhere, because that's going to be frustrating for you, right? So you're going to use those observation skills to really kind of forecast, like, okay, I know my group, I know my children, I know what I have control of, right? Through these observations. And maybe I'm going to just anticipate maybe some potential issues that could come up, because this is what that allows you. You're now being proactive, and then you can devise a strategy for dealing with anything that comes up before it happens. And that's really, really important, because then that frees up so much of your mental space and your cognitive and emotional energy. So when you are giving the lesson, you're present with the child, and you're not trying to put out fires. You're not like, oh my gosh, I did not see this coming, and now my lesson's ruined, or, it just has gone completely like not how I planned. Now you're getting frazzled, you're getting frustrated. And that's really hard, because when that happens, and I say this from my own experience, like I said, you as the educator are really frustrated. And then what happens is that you start to lose trust in the philosophy, you start to lose trust in the child's abilities, you start to lose trust maybe in yourself, that like, gosh, I thought I knew what I was doing, but this lesson just turned out to be something that I didn't want it to be. So you get to that level of frustration, and it happens to all of us, right? And that's how we learn. But this pausing before and kind of asking these questions that we'll go over in the next slide can help you alleviate that. And like I said, be proactive about, your lesson presentation. So here are a couple like sample questions when I talk about forecasting. You can ask yourself the 4 W's, like, who will participate in this lesson? In COVID, it's probably going to be just a single child. So that's COVID related, but you have to think about that, right? Where will we do this activity? Is this something that's on an individual shelf? Is this going to be something we do outside? If it's non-COVID times, is this going to be at the sensory table, or, anywhere, circle time, whatever it is, where? And then when will we do this activity, and for how long? Okay. So, again, will it be during circle time, or we're going to do it outside? And is it going to be in the beginning of the day? Because you notice the children's work habits are a little more concentrated in the beginning of the morning than they are in the afternoon. Majority of classrooms kind of let loose in the afternoon because it's after nap. Maybe kids are overtired, they're hungry, they want to be. So that's maybe not a time you want to do a super structured or, involved lesson, because you know that they're learning, behaviors are different in the afternoon and the morning. So you asking the forecasting question of when do I want to do this activity will really be based on that. And then what materials will I need? And to make sure that you have those all gathered and organized. Okay. And then some other forecasting questions you may want to think about, like, what background knowledge does the child need to get the most out of this lesson? If they don't know, basic primary colors, and then you're introducing a really advanced color sorting work, it's going to be hard for them, and maybe they're not going to connect with that work, and they won't get the most out of it, right? Because they have to have some other, prerequisite knowledge before they can move on to that skill. Think about behavioral expectations that maybe you want to introduce or review. I always think when I think of this question, I think of a sensory table, which I know is not the reality of our COVID life right now, but someday sensory tables will be back. And I think we can, as adults, can get really excited about like, a sensory based activity or maybe an art activity that we're doing. But it's always good to kind of, should I go over some expectations? Like, should I teach them how we're going to keep things in the sensory bin before we start? That, should I have smaller amounts of paint so they're not spilling it? What do I want to review with them? So when we do get to the lesson or activity or whatever it is, they have those expectations and they know. We're not just assuming or being frustrated when they're just, dumping rice onto the floor, because again, that's really satisfying, but they didn't understand that expectation. Okay. And also make sure that the other teachers in the classroom know the expectation of the lesson. I think this is really important. This is part of your material making checklist to check in with your co-teacher and show them. So everyone's on the same page about this lesson. There's no right or wrong. If you want to introduce a lesson at circle time or, do individual lessons, whatever it is, just make sure the other teacher knows. Which goes into the final question. Will I present this to a group? Is this individual? If so, when? Again, if I'm thinking of more non-COVID times where we're not having individual shelves, like, am I just placing the new work on the shelf and allowing children to explore? Like, is the work set up that way that they can do that and be independent? Or is it just too many pieces and you feel like they need more of a formal presentation before they engage with it so they know how to appropriately do it? Again, I don't have the answers to this, but your observations will tell you that. So that's why you want to be asking the questions before you bring that into your learning environment. And this is a big one. Replenish plan is on our material making checklist. So in your curriculum binders, when you are, building your lesson and going over that material making checklist, Replenish plans is on there. And I wanted to highlight that as part of the prep because this is really an important detail that I think we can often overlook. So if you have some type of independent artwork, what's like, I always use the sticker work as the example, or something that just needs to be refilled throughout the day so the other children can use it, or if it's on an individual shelf and the child's, uses it and then it's done, coloring pages or, open-ended scribble pages, whatever they are, just make sure whatever that is that you have easy access to extras of the different materials that are needed for the lessons. So again, the sticker work. Think of a sticker work, an individual sticker work where there's one sheet of stickers and a piece of paper. And then the child is taking the stickers off and putting them on and all is great. Well, when the stickers are out and the paper is full, you don't put like, you only put a certain amount on the tray. So it's, independent for that child, but you have extra sheets and extra paper within arm's reach. So when it's done, boom, back on the tray, and then they can engage in it. Because if not, then they won't be able to engage with that work and it's not reset and it's not ready for them. And as we know, if our environment is not ready, the child cannot participate. So the replenish plans are really, really important. And that's not just with works on the tray. That is if you are introducing a sensorial based work or an art activity that is going to have extra paint or extra mess. And those messes are okay, but again, we want to be prepped for it. So do we have extra towels? Is there a mop nearby in case it gets really messy, or extra paper towels? Or, should we take the children's shirts off? So, we're not, or put an apron on them, like just making sure all of that is kind of figured out before you start so that, you have all that prepped. And then you can be present in the lesson, like I was saying earlier. So just making sure that all those extra materials that you'll need are ready to go. And just like we were talking about last month, I had to bring it back to this again, because I think what's really, really important is that before we do a lesson presentation or bring new materials into our classroom, I think us as the adult can have a certain expectation of how it should go. When I was a teacher, I know I always did. And it was, like I said earlier, kind of a bummer when it didn't go as planned. And I would be hard on myself. Like I said, you start to lose trust. You start to get frustrated. This is not what it was. But if you can shift that, just like we talked about last month, and get into that mindset of observing and reflecting and then adjusting, what we can be remembering is that even if a lesson goes completely different than you planned, that is okay, because you're always learning something from that experience. And we want you as educators to be taking a risk in trying new lessons with our children, because that is the only way we'll know what truly works for them in their learning environment. And that's the beauty of our curriculum and setup, is that, there's no, like I said in the beginning, there is no set way, no set curriculum that we say, okay, you have to do this lesson on Tuesday and this lesson on Wednesday, because I don't know what works for your children, or what your teaching style, or how they like to learn. So you get to drive that. And that's really powerful. But also just know it's okay if things go totally different. All I ask is that you just observe and reflect on it, and then say, yeah, next time I'll maybe, I'll put a little less paint in each of the bins, because I saw that became really messy really quick, and that was stressful for me. Or I'll have more glue sticks ready so they can be, more into, if more children want to join the art activity, they can, because I'll have the glue sticks ready. All these little things that, again, if you're prepping for before the lesson, can help make it more successful. So just a couple tips in terms of what you can be doing before. That prep is so, so important. And it can help just any lesson or any, introducing any new material go a little smoother, and help you enjoy the bringing that new material into your classroom, which is always an exciting time, and then seeing how the children interact with it. So, as I always say, share with a co-teacher. Hopefully you can use some of these tips as you start planning out future curriculums and lessons. You don't have to answer all those questions for every lesson that you do, just something to kind of keep on your radar when you're bringing new lessons in, so you can just be ready, and help be proactive about anything that may come up that wasn't planned. Because as we know, a lot of times things don't go as planned in our classrooms, and that's the beauty of working with young children. So you always have to be on your toes. So yeah, any questions, you can always reach out. I'm so looking forward to the rest of April, where we can talk more tips about lesson presentations and how we're presenting all these wonderful materials and lessons that you all come up with, to help it be more successful in your learning environments. So have a great day, and I will see you next week here on Tuesday Training Tools. Bye, everyone.